Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 27th of February, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index, pushing lower this morning. Had quite a sell-off in the end yesterday, so we are seeing the dollar looking weaker, and that's actually starting to look weaker on the medium-term chart as well. Although the long-term chart is still in transition, so the long-term trend holding up, but the short-term trend is more bearish than it's looked for a while. Looking at the euro, we see the euro strength against that weaker dollar, so Eurodollar looking stronger, although we are hitting some resistance here on the point and figure chart. A dollar yen, which is really where we get a heads up for the dollar, that's really looking quite bearish. So does suggest that the dollar is coming under some pressure. Sterling is hitting 133 against that weaker dollar, stronger sterling as well. So we're really seeing multi-month highs now for sterling. It's really looking very strong indeed. We've got a target to 145, and 137 is the near side target. But we still do have these big downside targets hanging over us. So you just wouldn't believe that sterling would be making these sorts of levels with everything that's going on with Brexit. But the chance of a delay to no deal is pushing that higher, and we're seeing sterling looking pretty strong against the euro as well, and against the Swiss franc, and against the Aussie dollar too. So we're seeing really the market reacting to that. Bitcoin looking stronger at a third of a percent up, but still pretty weak on all three time frames. The S&P 500 index just nudging higher again. Just not really changing this short-term trend. It's been going on now for quite a while, nearly 2 months. So that's really significant, seeing a short-term trend like that just lasting. So we are starting to look a little bit flatter here on the price. We may just start to see the market coming off a bit. The Nasdaq also little changed, and the Dow we're seeing was slightly down last night. The Russell 2000 index also doing the same. The S&P future is down a third of a percent this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini also down about a third of a percent. So we're starting to see some weakness showing on these indices. The FTSE 100 this morning down 0.75%, and that really is clearly breaking the uptrend. So we are seeing that showing up in the UK market, and the FTSE 250 down 0.5%. So that is also looking weaker. The DAX is off 0.63%. So we are just seeing here again a little bit of a showing there, and the CAC 40 is down a third of a percent. So we are just seeing weakness in Europe. Japan was up slightly overnight, up 0.18%, and the Hang Seng Index was little changed, and China actually managed to rise again, not by a lot, by 0.4%, but holding on to the gains that we've seen over the last week. So it's looking quite spectacular. The Sensex is also just flat, slightly down in India. Interesting to see how the skirmishes between India and Pakistan have an effect on the Indian market, but for the moment it's not much. Looking at the Aussie market, we're down a third of a percent there as well. Brent crude up about a third of a percent this morning, and WTI also up. So we are seeing a little bit of recovery there, but not enough to take these products bullish. We're still in bearish mode there. Looking at US nat gas, we're steady at 278. Gold is just a slightly lower this morning, so it's just struggling to break back above the cloud here. Weaker dollar might come through and help, and silver also just off about 0.5%. US 10-year yields sitting fairly steady at 2.64%, so still weak there. And the German bond market, we're seeing German bonds actually still looking pretty good on the medium and long-term charts, just struggling on the short term. This data all coming from Thomson Reuters Icon or Metastock Zenith. Looking over to Yahoo Finance data, here we see the mixed picture in Asia and Europe down mostly, and the US market also just down slightly overnight. The performers in the Dow Jones last night, Cisco Systems were the best performer, up 0.7%. Nike also looking pretty strong. A lot of these Dow stocks looking pretty good indeed. On the downside, we had Caterpillar down 2%. and Home Depot was down 0.8%. So Caterpillar was the worst performer by far. Looking at the bellwethers in tech, we had Google up 0.5%, Amazon were up 0.2%, and Apple just little changed, but still just holding that support on the long-term chart. And we had Facebook giving up some of the gains from the day before, down 0.3%. Looking at the Aussie market, the best performers here was Focus Group up 9.9%, so nearly 10% there, and looking like a really good recovery situation. A little bit of a shortage of upside targets there, but the chart looking pretty good. Seek Limited were up 8%. And also starting to look like they might be recovering as well. And then on the downside, we had Next DC. They were down 8%, and Reliance Worldwide were down 6.5%. So we are seeing a bit of a deterioration there. China, we saw quite a few stocks up. We had China United Network Communications up 9%. So really seeing some of these stocks now starting to rocket, which is quite interesting. In India, the Nifty 50, we had only a handful of stocks up. Ultratech Cement were the best performer, up 2.3%, but not enough really to take the stocks bullish. And if we look at the downside, Bharati Infratel still continues to be the laggard, down 3%, and Vedanta down 3%. This chart really struggling to recover. Taking a look at Europe this morning, looking at the FTSE 100, we start just a handful of stocks up. Micro Focus up 1.7%. Persimmon continues to rise off the back of those results, up 1.7%. Ocado Group announcing a joint venture with M&S this morning, up 1.4%. Here we see the live prices coming in from Yahoo. And Marks and Spencer's, they've come off worse off that Ocado announcement, so they're down this morning. And St James's Place down 3.3%. Looking at the 250, we've got Quintech Group up 3%. They're the best performer. Playtech up 2.7%, but not really changing the chart there. And then if we look at Metrobank, down 19% on the announcement that they need to raise more capital. So that's really hit Metrobank, and we can see the underperformance here on the Dow Jones, down some 65% relative to the Dow. So it really has struggled. Looking at the top European stocks this morning, we've got only a handful up. Bayer in Germany up 3.7%, not enough to really take this stock bullish. Iberdrola up this morning, up 0.38%. Looking at the worst performers in Europe, we've got Unilever down 2% and Banco Santander down 1.7%. That's it for today. Excuse me. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.